Cthulhu. Cthulhu is perhaps the most iconic of H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic entities, often depicted as a colossal octopus-headed, dragon-winged anthropoid being. Cthulhu first appeared in Lovecraft's 1928 short story, The Call of Cthulhu. The story introduces the concept of the Great Old Ones and the Cthulhu cult through the investigations of Francis Wayland Thurston. Cthulhu is described as a mixture of an octopus, a dragon, and a human caricature. A pulpy, tentacled head surmounted a grotesque and scaly body with rudimentary wings. As a Great Old One, Cthulhu possesses immense power and is worshipped by various cults across the globe. His very presence is said to drive humans to madness, and his awakening would herald a new age of chaos and terror on Earth. Despite his current slumber, Cthulhu's influence permeates reality, affecting the subconscious minds of artists, writers, and other sensitive individuals. Azathoth. Azathoth was first mentioned in Lovecraft's 1922 short story, Azathoth, though the entity was more fully developed in later works. In The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, 1926, Lovecraft describes Azathoth as that last amorphous blight of nethermost confusion, which blasphemes and bubbles at the center of all infinity. Azathoth, often referred to as the blind idiot god, or the nuclear chaos, is the supreme deity of the Cthulhu mythos. Residing at the center of the universe, Azathoth is an omnipotent, yet mindless entity, surrounded by a court of lesser gods and demons, who continually play pipes and drums to keep it pacified. It is said that if Azathoth were to awaken, all of reality would cease to exist. Despite its lack of consciousness, Azathoth is considered the creator of all things, having birthed the universe and its inhabitants through its chaotic dreams. The entity's incomprehensible nature embodies the concept of cosmic indifference, emphasizing humanity's insignificance in the grand scheme of the cosmos, hence the genre being called cosmic horror. Yog-Sothoth. Yog-Sothoth was first mentioned in Lovecraft's novella, The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, 1927, and played a significant role in The Dunwich Horror, 1928. In the latter, Yog-Sothoth is described as a congeries of iridescent globes. The entity's most famous quote comes from Through the Gates of the Silver Key, 1933. Yog-Sothoth knows the gate. Yog-Sothoth is the gate. Yog-Sothoth is the key and guardian of the gate. Past, present, future, all are one in Yog-Sothoth. Yog-Sothoth is known as the all-in-one and the gate and the key, existing outside conventional space and time. This entity is often described as a conglomeration of iridescent spheres or a mass of glowing orbs. Yog-Sothoth is omniscient and omnipresent, containing all knowledge of the past, present, and future within its being. As the gateway between dimensions, Yog-Sothoth plays a crucial role in the cosmic order. It is through this entity that other old ones can enter our reality, making it a central figure in many occult rituals and summonings. Despite its vast power, Yog-Sothoth is bound by certain cosmic laws and can only manifest fully under specific circumstances. Nyarlathotep. Nyarlathotep first appeared in Lovecraft's 1920 prose poem of the same name. Unlike other cosmic entities, Nyarlathotep actively interacts with humans and can assume human form. In the original story, Nyarlathotep is described as the crawling chaos, the mighty messenger of the outer gods. The entity played a significant role in The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, 1926, and was mentioned in several other Lovecraft stories. Nyarlathotep's ability to take various forms and directly manipulate humans made it a unique and particularly menacing figure in Lovecraft's pantheon. Nyarlathotep's intelligence and ability to communicate make it particularly dangerous. It often appears in the guise of a leader or prophet, manipulating humans to further the agendas of the Old Ones. This entity is associated with 1,000 different forms and is said to have 1,000 cults dedicated to its worship across the world. Shub-Niggurath. Shub-Niggurath was first mentioned in Lovecraft's 1928 story, The Last Test, though only in passing. Often described as an amorphous cloud with numerous tentacles and mouths, Shub-Niggurath is worshipped by various primitive cults that practice human sacrifice and other dark rituals. This entity is primarily known for its ability to produce offspring, constantly birthing monstrous creatures that serve as its servants and worshippers. These dark young are often described as tree-like creatures with numerous tentacles and hooves. Shub-Niggurath represents unbridled fecundity and the horror of uncontrolled, monstrous reproduction. Nug and Yeb. Nug and Yeb are the twin offspring of Shub-Niggurath and Yog-Sothoth. Nug and Yeb were briefly mentioned in Lovecraft's 1929 story, The Last Test. They are described as the monstrous nuclear chaos, Yog-Sothoth's hellish spawn. However, Lovecraft did not develop these entities further in his own work. Their association with Mars and Venus, as well as their specific descriptions, are post-Lovecraft additions to the mythology. Nug is often associated with Mars and is sometimes depicted as a vampire-like entity, while Yeb is linked to Venus and is described as a grotesque, slug-like creature. Together, they represent the union of cosmic forces and the bizarre offspring that such unions might produce. Dagon. Dagon first appeared in Lovecraft's 1917 short story, Dagon, one of his earliest works. The story describes a naval officer's encounter with a monstrous sea creature worshipped by amphibious beings. While not explicitly named as a god in this story, Dagon later became associated with the Deep Ones in The Shadow over Innsmouth, 1931. Often depicted as a gigantic fish-like being, Dagon is associated with the sea and its mysteries. This entity plays a significant role in the cult practices of coastal communities, where humans sometimes interbreed with Deep Ones to produce hybrid offspring. As a patron of the Deep Ones, Dagon represents the unknown terrors that lurk beneath the waves. Its worship often involves human sacrifice and the gradual transformation of human cultists into fish-like creatures. Dagon's influence extends beyond the ocean, affecting coastal towns and islands where the barrier between land and sea blurs. Yig. Yig was created by Lovecraft in collaboration with Zelia Bishop for the 1929 story, The Curse of Yig. In the story, Yig is described as the father of serpents, worshipped by Native American tribes in Oklahoma. This entity is known for its vengeful nature, often cursing those who harm snakes or its worshippers. While not as cosmic or incomprehensible as some of Lovecraft's other creations, Yig represents a more earthly, primal form of horror. The story blends elements of regional folklore with Lovecraft's cosmic horror themes, creating a unique entity within the mythos. Unlike some of the more cosmic and incomprehensible old ones, Yig has a more direct relationship with its followers. It is said to offer protection and blessings to those who revere snakes and practice its rites. However, Yig's wrath is terrible, and it is known to inflict horrific punishments on those who incur its displeasure, often in the form of monstrous, serpentine offspring. Ghatanothoa. Ghatanothoa was created by Frank Belknap Long, a close friend and correspondent of Lovecraft, in his 1932 story, The Space Eaters. However, the entity was more fully developed in Lovecraft's ghost-written story, Out of the Aeons, 1933, credited to Hazel Heald. In this story, Ghatanothoa is described as a great old one, worshipped on the continent of Mu. Its most distinctive feature is its petrifying gaze, which turns victims into mummies, with intact conscious brains trapped in immobile bodies. The story revolves around an ancient scroll depicting Ghatanothoa and the disastrous consequences of attempting to view the entity's true form. Its cult still exists in secret, seeking ways to free their dread god from its prison. The mere thought of Ghatanothoa's true form is said to be enough to drive a person to madness, making it one of the most feared entities in the Cthulhu mythos. Rhan-Tegoth. Rhan-Tegoth appeared in Lovecraft's ghost-written story, The Horror in the Museum, 1932, credited to Hazel Heald. In the story, Rhan-Tegoth is described as an ancient entity worshipped by prehistoric cultures and later trapped in the Arctic. This old one is associated with primordial times and is said to have ruled over the Earth aeons ago. Worshipped by prehistoric cultures, Rhan-Tegoth was eventually trapped in the Arctic and fell into a death-like sleep. Its cultists seek to awaken and restore the entity to its former glory. Rhan-Tegoth embodies the concept of ancient, forgotten horrors, waiting to reclaim their dominion over the earth. Tsathoggua. Tsathoggua was actually created by Clark Ashton Smith, a close friend and correspondent of Lovecraft, in his story, The Tale of Satampra Zairos, 1931. However, Lovecraft incorporated Tsathoggua into his own mythos and mentioned the entity in several of his stories, including The Whisper in Darkness, 1931, and The Mound, 1940. Lovecraft described Tsathoggua as very squat and pot-bellied. His head was more like a monstrous toad than a deity, and his whole body was covered with an imitation of short fur, giving somehow a vague sensation of both the bat and the sloth. Tsathoggua is known for its slothful nature, spending much of its time in a state of torpor in its underground lair. Despite its lethargic demeanor, Tsathoggua is a powerful and malevolent entity. It is served by the formless spawn, amorphous creatures that can assume any shape. Tsathoggwa's worship often involves rituals, performed in dark, underground locations, and its influence is said to seep through the earth, affecting those who dwell in or explore subterranean realms.